funny how much more signal you get when there's not as much noise. There's a lot of noise in the world today, and I think it's important that people that feel like they've figured something out go out there and share their ideas. So this is me trying to do that, trying to share my experiences with you, because a very wise man once said that knowledge is experience, everything else is just information. So in an information age where you have access to unlimited information, experience still trumps information. So everything I say today, you can go look it up on ChatGPT. You can get the information if you so choose to, but my opinion is you should go seek the experience, because the experience will give you the knowledge. And today I'm going to share my experience with you, and hopefully you will do the same. So my name is Zach Jungles. I have my master's in strength and conditioning. I'm a CSCS certified strength and conditioning specialist. I've been certified in a bunch of different neurological reset systems, from reflexive performance reset to square one system to neuro target to the Volta, Accelerate X, Accelerate ACL. And today we're going to share that journey and that experience with you. And as for the title of this video, it's going to be called Balance, because everything in life boils down to balance, right? You think about yin and yang, to and fro, riding a bike, sprinting, okay? These things all require elite balance. And the people that can balance the best, work-life balance, for example, these are the people that I feel truly succeed and are truly the happiest, right? Now, there are periods of your life where you have to be unbalanced in order to realize what you're missing, okay? So, when I was in college, I played football at St. John's University. I had a string of injuries where during 2020, I ran a corner route and smashed my head, broke my collarbone against a steel pole. And that's the worst concussion I've ever had by far. And I played football my entire life, had many other concussions, but that one was tremendously bad. It caused a string of injuries where I herniated a disc in my lower back for a huge pop. Didn't feel great. I had patellar tendinopathy for about 3 years. That was one of the nastiest injuries I've ever had. Tore my labrum my senior year football. That wasn't fun. And then I had terrible sciatica for like 2 years. That was not fun either. But along the way, through those experiences, I learned how to rehab myself. I rehabbed my own injuries, because especially with patellar tendinopathy, it was bad. I went to, Mayo Clinic. I went to different clinics around St. Cloud. Our team physical therapists, or ATs, nobody could help me. Nobody could give me answers or information. And I ended up buying a program from a guy named Jake Tura, who wrote a program called Jumper's Knee Protocol. And it ended up almost completely resolving my knee pain. So that's when I realized that in order to get knowledge, you have to go through the experience. You have to gain the information yourself. You have to live it. And so that's when I started living through these experiences to try and help clients and help people deal with their own things. Because when you feel hopeless and it feels like there's nobody there to come help you, sometimes all you need is a little hope to push you in the right direction. So today we're going to talk about balance and why it relates to everything that I've ever learned about strength and conditioning, rehab, and applied functional neurology. So after graduating college, I did an internship at the University of Minnesota with the triphasic training team. And while I was there, we learned reflex performance reset. And this is a concept that deals with using acupressure, so pressure on neurolymphatic or lymph node reset points that the brain uses to regulate tone on different muscles. So the whole thing about RPR is trying to gain balance between your flexors and your extensors. So in zone 1, which is the first part of reflex performance reset, it talks about breathing and resetting your hip flexors, your psoas, and your glutes, your main hip extensors. So again, it's about a balance between flexors and extensors. And at the University of Minnesota, we also talked about a concept called anterior-posterior pattern cycling. And this was a concept, I believe Carmelo Bosco maybe, or Giles Clemente was doing it back in the 60s or 70s or 80s. Not really sure where it came from. But at the University of Minnesota, they used it as a way to regulate tone between different sides of the body. So again, if I do a back squat and then a jump and then a leg extension and then a tib raise and then a hip flexor exercise, what did I just do? I just did like 5 anterior chain dominant movements. So what's going to happen? I'm creating too much tone on the front side of my body. There's not enough tone on the posterior side. I've just become imbalanced, okay? You think about like a bodybuilder, right? Why do we have just push days? That's going to create massive neurological imbalances in our brain, okay? Now again, if you're a bodybuilder, maybe that's appropriate, okay? If you're a power lifter, maybe it's appropriate to be in a certain pattern. But if you're an athlete, or if you're just somebody trying to live a normal life, you need to seek balance, okay, between your flexors and extensors. So really simple principle for me as a strength coach to you, if you're programming your own workouts, or you're a strength coach out there, please consider mixing front side and back side dominant movements. Now, before I learned Reflex Performance Reset and before I went to the University of Minnesota, I took a course called Square One System. And my sciatica was getting so bad that I couldn't even bend down to tie my shoes. And a little TMI here, I would lose control of my bladder a little bit. Not fully, like I wouldn't piss my pants, but I would almost feel like I was going to when I would bend down and pick something up. Shooting pain down the right side, drop foot, so my foot was dragging on the ground, whole right chain issue, right? Since then I've learned about what is actually going on in the brain there. But when I went out to South Dakota, I drove 9 hours to Belfort, South Dakota to learn Square One. And the host there, Mike Ryan, who was hosting Sean Sherman and his Square One system, Mike worked on me for about 20 minutes, and on the drive home, I didn't have any back pain at all. And throughout the next few months, I kept doing the comprehensive isometric series. I kept using Signal 6. These are Square One principles. And I never had any back pain after that, and I haven't since. And it's been about maybe 3 years. I haven't had any stint of back pain since then, which is absolutely incredible. So Square One is a system that deals with gait, okay? So how we walk, how we sit down, how we stand up. And Square One's divvied up into up and down and left and right, okay? So when I take a step with my right foot, my toes are flexing, my arch is dropping, my heel's everting, my tibia's internally rotating, my knee's flexing, my hips flexing, internally rotating, adducting, okay? So Sean found this joint map, and I've maybe used Square One with 300 people over the last 2-3 years, and this joint map is consistent in every single person that I've muscle tested. And a quick sidebar, any of you that believe that muscle testing isn't legit, I just want to explain something to you. So in physiology, we learn about the all or none principle, okay? The all or none principle states that a muscle or a motor neuron needs to meet threshold, okay? So the signal needs to meet a certain point before the motor neuron sends the signal to the muscle fibers to contract, okay? So when you're muscle testing somebody, if it doesn't lock up, or it's weak, or it can't hold, what is happening? A motor neuron hasn't met threshold. So what's the cause of that? Well, you have insufficient sensory input into your system. Or, in a really, really bad situation, one of your reflex arcs is broken. So think about going to the doctor and they, hit here and you kick out. What's happening, right? The sensory input's going to your spinal cord and going back out to contract the quad, kick out. That's a local reflex arc. But that signal also goes to my spinal cord, up past my brainstem, past my cerebellum, into my opposite frontal cortex, back down to contract the muscle, right? So muscle testing is a way that we can use low load or low force applications to figure out if a muscle or a division of muscle is obeying the all or none principle. So again, if you don't think muscle testing is legit, that's fine. But guarantee it is, and it's helped more than a few people deal with their pain, injury, compensation, whatever word you want to use, okay? So again, square one is a system that deals with up and down and left and right. We're trying to find a difference between up and down and left and right. And what's the whole deal? You find what joint action, in which joint, in which step, up, down, left, or right, lacks sensory input. You hold an isometric into that phase of gait in that joint action, and then you retest. Is there a difference between up and down and left and right? And then from there, it's just a game of clearing layers. Okay, in square one, this concept of layers is almost like peeling back an onion or opening a book from the last page. You're trying to peel back as much compensation as you can until something happens. Now, something could be absolutely anything. Maybe you get some more range of motion. Maybe you feel stronger. Maybe you run faster. Maybe you jump higher. Maybe you have less pain. Maybe your client reports they have less pain. Okay, that's not the goal of square one. The goal is to organize the nervous system by reducing compensation. Okay, bringing balance to the system. See what I'm trying to say? So if the whole goal is balance, then reflex performance reset square one and the other three systems I'm going to talk about aren't so different if they're all about trying to balance the system. So let's keep going. After learning square one system and interning at the University of Minnesota, I got hired by Jared Slater to go to Charleston, South Carolina and open IHT Human Performance. If you don't know anything about IHT Human Performance, it's one of the best gyms in the Southeast. I'm about to tell you why. So Jared and I had mutual connections through square one. So we had both taken square one, and after starting IHT, we both helped teach a few workshops. So I meet Jared, I moved down to South Carolina. I'm living in his house because he's awesome enough to let me stay with him. And we go out to Blinn Community College where we work on one of the pitching coaches named Chase Van Dyke. And the cameraman that was there to film us, David Hyde. We also worked on their whole team, almost their entire team. The things that happened on that day were so crazy that it had to be filmed because I couldn't believe it. And you had to be there to experience it for yourself. There are videos on my YouTube channel about Chase's experience with us. There are videos of his before and after and what range of motion he could get to in a simple RDL, trying to touch his toes. I remember when he walked in, he bent over in pain because he could barely walk, and he collapsed on the table. And in just a few hours of Jared and I doing square one with him, he could put his palms to the ground and do a full squat, no pain. And I'm still just speechless from that, because that experience alone solidified the fact that this was meant to be. We were meant to do that. We were meant to discover this concept of balance, right? So the story keeps going. So we work on our camera guy next, David, and he gets more range of motion in his shoulder. He's able to pitch for the first time in about a year because he had one of his scalenes removed, and he had I believe thoracic outlet syndrome. Dave, you might have to correct me, but he went immediately back into pitching, ill-advised, and got shut down again. But the fact that he was able to pitch for the first time in a year after just working on him for maybe 30 minutes, gaining more range of motion than he had in a year is pretty crazy. Then we work on their entire team and we get the same kind of results. People doing stuff that they haven't been able to do in years, range of motion that they haven't seen in such a long time. Being able to pitch, throw, get into positions with no discomfort, no pain, no negative feedback. And again, I'm not a physical therapist yet. I'm not a doctor yet. But again, what did we do? We checked up and down and we checked left and right. Where's the balance? Restore the balance, good things happen. Okay? So We use square one at IHT. We use RPR at IHT. We use triphasic training. We use the anterior posterior pattern cycling method. We do infinity walks by Dr. Deborah Sunbeck. Okay? This book right here by Deb Sunbeck talks about brain balancing. She talks about imbalances and lateral dominance versus lateral bias, and why infinity walking in a figure eight with your eyes and your head fixed on an object, activating the vestibular ocular reflex, doing other things like adding math, okay? Adding in, crossing your arms and legs across your midline. Again, any cross crawl type movement, anything involving a figure eight is going to help balance the brain out, okay? Balance, 6-7, balance. We're trying to balance the brain, okay? So, at IHT, we use RPR, we use square one, we use infinity walking, we use other stuff that we'll get into in a little bit. And what do we see? We see on a single session intervention basis, using our 1080 Sprint 2, that force asymmetries, so how much force you produce on your left leg versus your right leg, okay? The force asymmetries go down on a single session intervention basis. That's not good enough for you sports scientists, so what do? We get a CV adjusted, okay, coefficient of variance adjusted measure, so we do a few sessions of interventions to see, we do a few sessions of data collection to see what's your average asymmetry, okay? And what happens? The average asymmetry drops to 10% from like 30% over the course of 2 months of training. And it stays there the entire rest of our training cycle with an entire team. So anybody that was above our CV adjusted asymmetry mark, all their asymmetries went down, stayed down, okay? So whether you believe that asymmetries are important or whether they correlate to injuries or whatever, right? I don't care who you are. If you're producing 50% less force on your left leg than your right leg, and your stride length and your stride contact time are extremely different, your brain is imbalanced, okay? And you are setting yourself up for injury. Now, at this point, I've had coaches that say, and these coaches are my good friends, by the way, so I don't blame them or mock them for having this holding this opinion, but they say, well, what if an athlete is using their compensation to help them? What if it's assisting them? What if they're great because of their compensation? Well, you know, that's all hunky-dory to believe that that is truly the case. But I will say that if they get injured and that's not something you accounted for, then that's not something you accounted for, but it's something I account for. So balancing your brain is one of the most important things we can do. And yeah, we can do that with infinity walking. We can also do that with some other stuff, okay? Now we're gonna get into that in a little bit, but I wanna show you guys some other stuff. So in the ancient texts, they talk about brain balancing. Trevor Foreman gave me this book by Glenn Dolman, What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child. This dude was a physical therapist back in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and what did he do? He found out that these kids, these poor kids, were getting better results than the more affluent kids, because the kids that had learning disabilities and their parents couldn't afford to buy them a little hopper, a little jumper, they'd put the kid on the ground and the kid would crawl around. And by instilling this cross-crawl pattern in the kids got better. Their learning disabilities went away. Their speech seemingly came. And it wasn't because they were given any fancy medications. It's because they were allowed to develop the neurological patterns that biology and God or evolution or whatever you believe in out here was given them. So what do? They created repatterning, Denison lateralizing, repatterning, whatever you want to call it, and they started doing manual cross crawls with these kids, and they all got better. Their speech impediments got better. Their test scores got better. Everything got better because they were doing cross crawls. What were they trying to do? Guys, they were trying to balance the brain, okay? Now, they say it again in this book, Smart Moves, right? We did figure eights, okay? We did cross crawls. We drank water. We did the K27 point to get more parasympathetic. And guess what? When you inhibit the sympathetics and activate the parasympathetics, guess what happens? You learn better. Your test scores get better. When you balance the brain out, okay, you learn better. You need movement to learn. That's why when I was a kid and when I was in school and they tried to teach me, but I couldn't move, and they'd say, Zach, stop fidgeting around, stop moving around. Guess what? They were wrong. You need to move in order to learn. So to say we're just some strength coaches, no, you are doing an absolute service to your students, to your athletes, by getting them to move. Because they're sitting in a desk all day where they're in a flexion dominant pattern. They don't get extension. You sit in a desk all day, you don't get extension. You're looking at your phone like this right now, you're in flexion. Get up, get extended. Do some cross crawls, drink some water, do some figure eights, walk in a figure eight. Balance your brain out, please. This goes deeper. Brain gym, okay? My mom gave me this. They used to teach this in classrooms. They don't teach this stuff anymore. The test scores were getting better. The kids were getting smarter, okay? I don't know if you realize what's happening, but you need movement, okay? Whether your teacher tells you to stop fidgeting or not, get up and move. Do the brain gym stuff, okay? Do it. It's gonna make you smarter because you need to move in order to activate your brain. Movement can't be separated from learning because knowledge is experience. Everything else is just information. So when you are trying to be fed information, you can't do it. You need an experience to tie that knowledge together, okay? So, we're at IHT, okay? We're about 6 months in now, all right? I asked Mr. Slater if I can go to the Return to Nature retreat. We're in nature, we've returned, okay? But the Return to Nature retreat was held by Oksana, Carrie Bennett, Kelly Bento was there, Nate Stiles was there. These are names you gotta know, okay? These are the people that are working with pro athletes in a field called quantum biology, all right? Now, if you don't know anything about quantum biology, just understand this. Everything in life is underpinned by light, water, and magnetism, okay? These trees are planted in the ground. They are connected to the earth, to the Schumann resonance, okay? They work off light, off of photosynthesis. They need water in order to grow, okay? So, photosynthesis. You do your own human photosynthesis using melanin, okay? You capture light energy, and when you are grounded, the light charges your batteries, and it charges the water in your body, creating exclusion zones that take out all the junk from your system. You're no different than these trees back here, okay? You run on light too. That's why blue light increases blood glucose and red light decreases blood glucose, because it's all about balance. When the light is out, you're supposed to hunt, you're supposed to eat, okay? When the light goes down, you're supposed to go down. That's why artificial light at night and circadian disruptions are all correlated with chronic disease, okay? Because it's all about balance. You can't have light without dark, okay? You can't have night without day. You can't have the moon without the sun, okay? So get grounded, get outside when you're watching this, pop your blue blockers on, all right? So we go to this Return to Nature retreat. What do we learn? We learn that we need balance for our biology by practicing light, water, magnetism. These things underpin, okay, the sensory input versus motor output, which is the second layer. So layer 1 is quantum biology. Layer 2 is sensory input determining motor output. Okay, layer 3 is sleep, nutrition, exercise, whatever else you want to throw on top of it. Okay, but some of you aren't going below. Some of you aren't going even deeper than that. And you need to, or else you're not going to get results, because you are imbalanced in one of these two, okay? So either your layer 1 problem or layer 2 problem, and most likely it's both, okay? So in order to get results, find balance in both the 2 layers before you go to layer 3, all right? So we go to the Return to Nature retreat, and I'm working with a guy remotely who's helping me with my broken foot, Dr. Jared Burt, Mr. @train_efficiently on Instagram. Look him up, follow him, hit him up, fly him out, let him teach you, okay? Brain balancer extraordinaire, all right? So I broke my foot. I dropped a plate on the outside of my foot, shattered my 5th metatarsal. I was put in a boot, and what I did was every single day I went into the ocean and I put my feet in the water for 2 hours, layer 1, okay? Before I went to work, 2 hours in the ocean, seeing the morning sunrise, okay? I worked with Dr. Burton, and I'll show you the pictures. I had a brain imbalance that he categorizes as a left soft pyramidal weakness. What that means is my left side frontal cortex is having a hard time communicating with my pons medullary reticular formation. And you can see that by my left arm being turned in, okay? Now, this brain imbalance probably was happening long before I broke my foot, but it was exacerbated by breaking my foot. So working with Dr. Burton and using the layer 1 principles of light, water, and magnetism, I got my boot off in 2 weeks. So I go see this guy, Dr. Burton, in person, and he uses a device on me called the Volta X. Does his brain balancing stuff. I felt so amazing after he worked on me. I was like, this is incredible. But at first I wrote it off. I was like, nah, this is all. I don't understand what he did. I already got a lot of great tools, RPR square 1, triphasic training. We really don't need to go there with Dr. Burton. It seems too complex. That's what I told myself. And with the Volta X, with the electromuscle stimulation units, I was like, yeah, again, don't need that. I'll fade it. I'll pass. Okay. Summer rolls around, or the end of the summer rolls around. We get a quarterback who I won't say his name, but he had one of the worst backs I've ever seen. He had the back of probably like an 80-year-old. It was so bad. He had like 5 herniated discs. He could barely move around. He couldn't squat. It hurt when he took off into a sprint. So he's a quarterback at the biggest high school in the area, and he's competing for a starting job. So Slater is working with Dr. Burton through a mentorship. And when we start balancing these people's brains out using like really specific concepts, okay, this stuff is simple. You can pick up these books and read this stuff and get it right away, okay? But the brain balancing that we were doing with these kids was a little bit more complicated. It's still pretty easy to figure out. I mean, I'm a meathead and I kind of got it now, so like even for myself, it's not that hard to figure out. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, stuff that Dr. Burton says. But I digress. This quarterback has such bad back pain that we use some of Dr. Burton's brain balancing principles with him. And we also use about maybe 4 hours of square 1 on it. Within about 5 days, he reports that his back pain is completely gone, and he plays his entire senior year and leads his team to the state championship. In 5 days, his back pain that was there for years is gone. Doesn't come back. Now, it doesn't always work out that well, but when stuff like that happens, you really start to sit there and go, oh my, there's something here to balancing the system, whether your lens is up and down, left and right, or whether your lens is joint actions, or whether your lens is looking at a specific area, the cortex, the cerebellum, the midbrain, the pons, the mesocephalon, whatever it is. If you can find that and balance it, and it creates results immediately, it's hard to sit here and say that there's not something there. So we continue, or Slater continues his mentorship with Dr. Burton, and I start to have a really bad flare-up of Achilles tendinopathy. I throw everything at it. I'm doing isos every day. I'm doing eccentrics. I'm doing everything that the literature tells you should do. Being patient. Nothing's working. It's pissing me off. I love to sprint. I love to jump. I love to really do whatever I want, whenever I want when it comes to training. Like if I want to go squat 400 pounds, I'm going to go do it. And if I want to go jump and dunk a basketball, I'm going to do it. And I don't really care about the consequences, but I want to be able to do those things, right? So I'm having Achilles tendinopathy. Dr. Burton shows up with Brett Adams, Transcending Performance on Instagram, and 3 days of work with the Volta X, the EMS unit, and the brain balancing from Dr. Burton, and my Achilles tendinopathy is gone, and it doesn't come back. So I sit there and I go, well, this Volta is pretty cool. This electromuscle stimulation is pretty cool. For those of you who don't know about the scan feature, you basically take a sponge, you scan your body, you're looking for areas of electrical resistance, compensation, dysfunction, hypertonicity, whatever it might be. And so after I left IHT in December last year, I got one of these Voltas and I shipped it to a client of mine. His name's Caden. And Caden tore his ACL. He got it repaired and he was using the Volta every single day after he got surgery. Within 5 weeks, he was jogging. And that was against my advice, my recommendation, his doctor's advice, his doctor's recommendation, but that's the power of some of these things that we're starting to use, is the results are so uncommon that they're unbelievable. I even say it out loud now, and I think it's crazy that I can even say that with confidence. But I have the videos, we have the evidence, right? He gets full knee extension almost within his first few sessions of using the device, multiple times daily. He's got it in his hands all day, every day, doing Recover X, doing his 4 daily sessions. And I really got to give it up to Evan Lewis of Accelerate X, Accelerate ACL. First of all, Evan, Jenna, Dr. Burton, Sam Davis, Jared Slater, the whole Jungle team, you guys are going to change the game forever. I believe that. I got another client who's tore his Achilles named Trey. He's well ahead of schedule. So every single person that we're using these brain balancing and EMS and RPR and Square One and just anything that deals with balancing the brain, anything that deals with trying to find compensation and eliminate it, these proven systems that are proven at the highest level aren't just, heuristics on Instagram. I'm talking about a bunch of nonsense. People are eating it up. Don't even understand what you're looking at. You don't have the experience to get the knowledge. You just like consuming information, right? We're actually getting the results. And it's crazy. It's absolutely phenomenal. Okay? So, to go back to Dr. Burton's brain balancing, I've been starting to use this with people, and I really, really, really like it. So again, I'm a big fan of muscle testing. I'm pretty good at it now. And what I found is that when you find the right isometric, based on somebody's brain imbalance, where you find the right fast stretch to reduce the tone in a certain muscle, it can turn on almost every muscle in the body that's off. Like, that's the power of balance in the brain. You hold one 5-minute ISO in the right position with somebody, or you do the right fast stretch for enough reps with perfect form, and you might turn on so many different muscles within the body. You might eliminate the compensation so freaking quickly. It's absolutely astounding. So shout out to Dr. Burton for that, but the root for me goes back to Dr. J and his neurotarget system. So Dr. John Pietila worked for the Italian national soccer team for a few years, and they had data on a pro Italian soccer team, and they had data on player injuries. They had 28 injuries per 1,000 hours played, and when Dr. John Pietila came in and used NeuroTarget with their team, went all the way down to 4 injuries per 1,000 hours played. Over the years that he was there, it didn't go above that. So what did he do? He decreased their injury rate by up to 7 times, right? So when it's proven at the highest level, you can't deny it. You simply can't deny it, right? When it's proven on such a wide scale, you can't deny it. And it's a more applied concept of the things that you're going to read about if you crack these books, okay? It's just a more applied functional neurology approach. And it's not just for chiropractors, it's for everybody, right? I'm not a chiropractor and I use his system, okay? So what did we find with Dr. Pietila's work? Well, I just got into it now, April of this year, so early April, so what, that's maybe a month and a half, 2 months? But Dr. John's work is very similar to Dr. Burton's work, so I was able to see it almost right away, okay? So the cortex, frontal cortex, is responsible ipsilaterally for inhibiting the muscles above T6 anteriorly and below T6 posteriorly. So when somebody has a brain imbalance, what happens is they're all twisted up. So what do you have to do? You have to find the tone muscles, you have to find the weak muscles. It's easy to do that by identifying their posture, by doing a battery of neurotests. And once you find the ISO that turns every muscle back on, you hammer it. Because that muscle relates to the area of the brain that needs more sensory input. So again, When I say that everything is about balance, I truly mean it. If you have some sort of issue, some sort of problem, not just pain and injury, but health related, you're missing a key on balance. You need to go deeper in order to find that key, right? You have too much noise, not enough signal. Balance it out. You'll find your answer. Tap into the source code, figure out what you need, balance it out, okay? You're having a problem, figure out how to balance it. Get the scale, figure out what the problem is on both sides, reframe the problem. It's a balance problem. So all these experiences have connected these dots for me, where brain balancing can turn on the muscles, or RPR can turn on the muscles, or square one, or the Volta. With the Volta, extremely interesting. Had a conversation with Evan Lewis at the Volta certification workshop in Charleston just 2 weeks ago. And we talked about him working with a professional quarterback. And if you know football, you would know this guy's name. He's very famous. Talked about the fact that the first day he worked with him, he mentioned that he had a lot of concussions. And when they did the reboot protocol, which is putting 2 pads negative on the neck vertically and 2 pads across the transverse arch on ipsilateral tracts with the positive. When he turned it up, he could only feel it on one side. Turned it up some more, he still couldn't feel it on his other side. So what does that mean? His brain was imbalanced, caused by the concussion. With the Volta, you're going to find that one side is way more sensitive than the other. You need to balance the brain in order to regain or desensitize one side, gain sensitivity back in the other side. It's a brain imbalance. You can put, and we've done this with clients, you put a pad on one bicep, turn it up as high as you can, blind test. Put a pad on the other bicep, turn it up as high as you can, blind test. You can physically tell the imbalance. I had one client that his imbalance from left to right was so bad that he could only get to 30 on his left arm and 60 on his right arm. And his right arm was the one that had the pain. His brain was imbalanced. We need to address his other arm, his non-painful arm. What was his prescription? Arm bath. On the oversensitive arm, desensitize it, balance the brain. It all connects. Every dot. Front, back, left, right, up, down, charge, no charge, positive, negative, too much tone, not enough tone, weak, whatever it is, balance it out, okay? I know I'm getting a little fired up, but it's because everything over these last few years has been this. It's been haunting my brain. I need to get it out. So hopefully if you listen to this, hopefully if you got this far, you got something out of it.